What If is an animated TV series on Disney Plus that is dedicated to looking at alternate versions of events that occurred in the entries of the MCU. Now, I have already talked about this series quite extensively, having covered the other 2 seasons when they came out, and overall the main problems with the show have always been the same things. It usually fails to stick to the one change rule, needing a wide variety of different changes to occur in order for the story to even function. A lot of the episodes don't conclude in a satisfying way, and in general these writers seem to be afraid of letting these stories stand alone on their own merits, instead choosing to do massive crossovers and multiversal battles for the big finales, choosing to focus on ideas they already have instead of trying to make the full use of the premise and keep introducing new stories and characters each episode. Now, with season 3 they obviously have the chance to start afresh again. They don't need to tie into anything that came before it, and they can just focus on giving us fresh and interesting spins on the mainline stories. And remember, as we're going through this is the final season they are confirmed to be releasing, so surely they'll make sure that these are the best episodes and ideas they could possibly come up with. Right? Episode 1 focuses on the fact that Bruce Banner tries to get into therapy and this caused him to ruin the world. It's about as dumb as it sounds. Remember in the Winter Soldier when it's established that Sam is a therapist that helps people? That thing they conveniently forgot so they could beat the shit out of a traumatized Walker and Falcon in the Winter Soldier? Oh, that nigga dead! Well, here they actually remember that Sam used to do that, and in this universe the change is that at some point Bruce, on his morning run, met Sam and was invited to a therapy session to work on his problems with the Hulk. One day, Sam decided to invite Bruce out into the middle of the ocean on the family boat. You know, the ocean, that thing that never has any violent storms or thrashing waves that might cause Bruce's heart rate to go up and unleash the Hulk. Then, completely to the surprise of absolutely no one, the weather gets bad and Bruce turns into the Hulk. And it's just really funny because he starts beating the shit out of the boat, and we've seen how powerful the Hulk can be. But because Sam is the main character of this episode and so he needs to live, the boat just doesn't snap in half immediately, so it makes the Hulk look really sad and pathetic. Now the Hulk jumps away and Banner tries to find a cure for the Hulk. He comes to the logical conclusion that because gamma radiation caused the Hulk, hitting himself with more radiation would cure it and definitely wouldn't just make it worse.
Sometimes my genius is... it's almost frightening.
So he goes and hits himself with more gamma radiation and this somehow causes a creature to spawn out of him and it turns into a kaiju. And to put a long story short, it just kind of turns into the shitty American Godzilla film where it just spawns smaller babies and it goes on a rampage across the world. Iron Man makes the Avengers giant mech suits to go and fight the monsters, and all 5 of them die trying to stop them. So then 3 other heroes team up to do the exact same thing and somehow they win. You heard that right. A team of 5 mechs controlled by a demigod, a super soldier, one of the smartest people on the planet, and 2 of the deadliest assassins in the world fail to stop the monsters. But 3 mechs powered by Sam, a dude with a jetpack, Monica Rambeau, a regular government agent, and some other one that they don't specify but I doubt is as good as Thor, manage to drive them back.
Yeah, that makes sense.
We then cut to the present day, and if you want to know the basic gist of this episode, it's just Pacific Rim with a bit of Power Rangers thrown in. If you've seen that film, it's just that but with MCU characters, and it has some mech combining stuff from Power Rangers, but that's about it. On top of this, there's just so many questions I have about the present day that just isn't explained or justified by one change of this universe. Why is Bucky just a normal regular dude working for the government when he should either be still working for Hydra or traumatized and on the run from the government? Why is the Red Guardian just not in prison? Why has the government made Sam Wilson the new Captain America when they barely knew each other, and ultimately the government would decide who was the new one, if they were to make a new one? I'm sure out of all the candidates, they could have found someone more qualified than guy with a jetpack. Sam and Monica investigate a gamma spike and they say their sensors must be wrong because there's nothing there, especially not under the ice they're currently standing on. Oh wait, that's exactly where the gamma spike is. And as such, they get taken by surprise by a few monsters. None of their weapons work and they get thrown in the ocean. And the only reason they don't die is because the hundreds of monsters decide to just not attack them for some reason. Yeah, you know how 3 of these mechs somehow saved the world from hundreds of monsters? The first fight we see is two of those mechs getting bitched by 3 monsters, just in case you needed to know how the power scaling was going to go in this episode. Monica tells Sam they need Bruce to help fight the monsters, and Bucky tells them that he managed to trace him back to an abandoned black site, with Sam heading there to find Bruce. After finding him, Bruce refuses to use the Hulk to fight, but instead gives his schematics that will help the mechs be more effective against the monsters. As a wave of monsters attack, the rest of the mechs somehow don't instantly get wiped out despite what we saw earlier. As Sam arrives, he uploads the schematics to the mechs, combining the mechs together to create a super mech. Despite having isolated himself and cut himself off from the outside world, Banner somehow knew how many mechs there were and how their suits worked so he could make a project that combines them together just right. Sure, because why not? The crew begin to attack the monsters and they start by using their hand beams to burn them, which is shown to be very effective and kills the monsters quickly and efficiently. They then decide to just stop doing this so they can fight them with melee weapons instead, wasting time and throwing them around where they will presumably smash into more buildings and cause more damage. After fighting these smaller monsters, they somehow don't notice the giant kaiju one that is standing behind them, getting taken by surprise despite the fact that this thing's steps cause small earth tremors to happen. As they lie damaged, they see Bruce's plane flying overhead, and they realise that Bruce will use the nuclear bomb in it to power himself up and defeat the monsters. Sam tells him not to do it, but Bruce says Lamau and does it anyways, infusing himself with more gamma radiation. Just to double check, Bruce absorbing some gamma radiation created the Hulk. Him absorbing even more gamma radiation created a new monster that grew out of him. Him absorbing more gamma radiation for the second time, instead of creating another kaiju monster, just turned the Hulk into Godzilla. Why the fuck didn't it just turn him into Godzilla the first time? The exact same thing happens to him twice in a row and somehow it makes 2 entirely different results.
That just makes no fucking sense.
Now, Mega Hulk and the kaiju fight, and of course the Hulk wins thanks to the help of the mech crew. And Sam manages to reach the Hulk's humanity, and the Hulk takes himself and the monsters back to Bruce's island where they won't harm humanity ever again. This episode wasn't the best start. The animation was decent, and I did really like the other art styles incorporated into the episode, whether it be the 80s style TV show or the stylized flashbacks. But overall, the rest of the episode was just boring and nonsensical. You would think they would put an emphasis on the fight scenes, as the kaiju and mechs are the primary selling point of the episode, but they really just felt underwhelming at the most part. Also, the voice acting wasn't great. Most of it's alright, but Anthony Mackie and Mark Ruffalo sound like they just got dragged to the studio against their will and had a gun pressed to their head, forcing them to shit out this dialogue before they were allowed to go home. I'm serious, listen to Ruffalo's episode in the first season and then listen to him in this one. It's like over the past 3 years his soul has just been drained of any energy he could put into his voice work. They also got all of these voice actors back to voice variants of their characters and they barely fucking do anything with them. If you replace Moon Knight or Shang-Chi or the Red Guardian with some random generic S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, it still would have been the same, because they don't do anything significant in this episode. Moving on from this episode, we see what would have happened if Agatha Harkness visited Hollywood. It's a bit of a misleading title, to be honest, when the real deviation here should be, what if Agatha learnt about the Celestials? In this episode, it focuses on Agatha trying to create some sort of ritual in order to drain the Celestial that is in the Earth's core, and so manipulates Howard Stark to shoot a film with her and create a series of events that will lead to the ritual working. Although Howard is unaware of what she's trying to do and merely thinks it's just a film being rewritten over and over and over again so she can get it just right. And right off the bat, I've got no idea why this is the premise. Why does she need to be in Hollywood to do this ritual? Why does she need a film made for this to work? Can't the Darkhold offer a way to get this shit done? It just seems like they wanted an episode where Agatha, Howard Stark and Kingo are together and they came up with this.
That's just lazy writing.
Jarvis is also here and his main shtick is pushing back against the movie and Agatha and the Starks' more ridiculous ideas. And while this starts off funny enough, it quickly grows stale. Agatha decides she needs the help of Kingo, one of the Eternals who is a movie star, and so he arrives on the set to be the villain of the third act. It turns out that he knows that Agatha is up to something but chooses to come along anyways. They have this dance off where they perform stunts that obviously couldn't be performed by 2 normal average humans, But no one seems to notice these two people flinging each other 40 foot in the air. The same thing happens later when everyone sees Kingo fire energy out of his hands and Agatha starts spewing fire with her eyes, and they blow up the set and no one reacts like a normal human being. Which might be excused for Howard as we find out later, but the rest of the people, I've got no idea why they're so chill with this.
You guys are dumb.
Also, apparently the reason Agatha's powers are white here is because she absorbed the powers of the other Eternals. But that really doesn't make a lot of sense because her powers never changed by doing this in her previous appearances, but whatever I guess. She explains she wants to absorb the power of the Celestial in the centre of the Earth, Tiamat, in order to save the Earth, and convinces Kingo to join her as he has lived as a human and loves being part of it. He agrees to help, and after getting a vision from Arishem, he realises the Celestial is coming for them. The two of them try and get Howard to shoot the final act on set now, as Agatha has cast a series of runes around the set to help her, but it's revealed that the sets have been broken down due to the third act rewrite. They decide to go to the Griffith Observatory to write the runes all over and do the ritual, and it's then revealed that Howard knew that Agatha and Kingo had powers and was just letting them get away with everything to save on special effects, which I do think is a genuinely funny bit of writing for the episode. As the crew starts to draw more runes, Arishem begins to descend on the Earth, and so they quickly finish and she drains Kingo of his powers, which allows her to drain the power of Tiamat. And despite being a celestial being and a woman that specializes in magic, they mostly just punch each other, giving us a very boring fight.
So boring!
It's only after randomly punching each other for a little bit that Agatha decides to just win instantly and uses a spell on him, draining the power and becoming the most powerful thing in the universe, as well as save the Earth. Agatha then states that she intends to take over everything, which at least makes her consistent with what we know about her character, but then Kingo gives her a heart-to-heart and tells her that she's a really good actress, and that's enough to convince a woman who has craved power for hundreds of years to just not take over the world, with her instead choosing to become a movie star on Earth. I'm serious.
What a load of bullshit.
Overall, the second episode is exactly what I expected it to be. The voice acting is a lot better, the two leads have a lot of chemistry, and there's a lot of dance choreography and camera framing that I enjoyed. But of course, the episode skipped over what exactly the change was that allowed Agatha to discover the Celestials, and then also skipped over how she somehow managed to get the jump on some of the most powerful beings in the universe to steal their powers. Because there's really no way Agatha was anywhere near the strength to take on the Eternals, especially as Makari can just run up and punch her head off instantly, but the plot needs to happen, so what the fuck ever. Moving on to the third episode, we see what would have happened if Red Guardian didn't act as the undercover role in the US that we saw at the beginning of Black Widow, instead getting jealous that the Winter Soldier has chosen to steal the Super Soldier Serum and kill the Starks. Red Guardian instead messes with that mission for some reason. I think he wants recognition for his skills and his stature as Russia's super soldier, as well as just making himself publicly known in the West and striking fear into people's hearts. But how fucking up his government and Hydra's plans help with that, I don't really get.
Brilliant! I have absolutely no idea what's going on.
Also, in this episode, they seem to forget that Winter Soldier isn't Bucky. Winter Soldier is a serious assassin that wouldn't be wasting time talking to Red Guardian and making snark remarks the way Bucky does, and he gets worse throughout the episode. Because the mission drew too much attention and only one Super Soldier Serum was obtained and the rest was damaged, Winter Soldier and Red Guardian are abandoned and forced to make their own way home, with Winter Soldier having failed a mission messing with his head. As the police arrive on the scene and rescue the Starks, Bill Foster shows up and takes charge of the situation, making the obvious and unfunny joke of building them up as legendary killers, only for it to cut to Red Guardian being an idiot. And Bucky is just chill with interacting with normal people. I mean, he's a super soldier with a metal arm. Not only has this side never been a thing before, but why would they ever give him the skills and techniques needed to blend in with normal society? It's just fucking with his character for the sake of jokes that aren't funny. So Red Guardian wants to find someone called the Rook, who he believes will be able to help them. And so the rest of the episode is just going to be a buddy trip between him and Winter Soldier trying to find the Rook in Las Vegas. Just to repeat myself, they're using the Winter Soldier in a comedy episode.
I don't want to live on this planet anymore.
Also, because they want you to root for these two for some reason, they make sure to steal a car from an over-the-top douchebag that speeds into a disabled parking bay and spits on the floor. Because, I mean, just fuck subtlety, am I right? They drive towards Las Vegas where Bill Foster is holding a stop and search. And he quickly figures out that these two are the people they're looking for because despite having plenty of time to think of a cover story, they just don't bother to make one apparently. During the pursuit, Red Guardian once again doesn't want the Winter Soldier to shoot anyone, despite the fact that he presumably has killed plenty of people to get to where he is now and he's not a pacifist. So I've got no idea why he's desperately trying to save the enemies of his nation. The two manage to crash Foster's car, but he puts on the Goliath suit and chases after them. Red Guardian decides to jump on him and causes him to fall over, and then somehow manages to jump back into the car despite the Winter Soldier flooring it and Goliath slowing down, but fuck me for paying attention to details I guess. As they start to speed towards a cliff, one of the cops asks if they're dumb for trying to jump a canyon, and Foster then says they're enhanced and dumb. Again, just to repeat myself, the Winter Soldier, this fucking guy, is called dumb. The two crash the car but somehow manage to escape, patching themselves up at a nearby vet. After talking about their past, Guardian helps Winter Soldier start to remember some of his past, where he remembers Coney Island. As the two get ready to move, Soldier receives orders to eliminate the Red Guardian. The two arrive in Las Vegas and they meet the Rook, who is revealed to be Obsidia Stane, who revealed that the Starks had super soldier serum to the Russians in order to have them eliminated. We then get a speech where he talks about how great capitalism is, all the while readying a pistol that both of them somehow don't see or hear him readying. He shoots at them and somehow Winter Soldier is able to react to bullets and block each and every one of them, so I guess super soldiers are speedsters now as well. Winter Soldier then kills Stane by knocking him out of a window. After his death, guards from the Red Room arrive to attack them, with both of them leaping out the window and landing down in front of Foster and the police, who also begin tracking them. They manage to lose them when Winter Soldier shoots some of these slot machines, which instead of breaking them somehow causes all of them to just shoot out jackpots, and for some reason this makes all of these civilians who just heard gunshots and saw the police tracking criminals to leap right into the middle of an active crime zone.
That's not how it works. That's not how any of this works.
Foster activates the Goliath suit and fights them, although the two super soldiers manage to defeat him. As they flee into a nearby building, more soldiers from the Red Room arrive, cornering them, and they then try and activate the Winter Soldier's trigger phrases to get the Winter Soldier into compliance. Hey, remember when even after escaping Hydra's influence and regaining his memories, Bucky was still a danger because of these trigger phrases, and it took years of Wakandan science and therapy to de-brainwash him? Here, Red Guardian reminds him that he's from Coney Island, and that's enough for him to just snap out of it instantly. Wow, I can't believe that he had to be frozen at the end of Civil War when all Steve needed to do was remind him that he's been to Coney Island and he would have been fixed immediately.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay.
Foster and the cops arrive in the building and a big three-way battle happens between all of them. I mean, I assume so. The episode decides to cut away from the only possibly interesting fight in the episode, but I'll just assume that's what happened. We see Hydra have recaptured Winter Soldier, who states that Red Guardian died before Hydra erases his mind. Meanwhile, Red Guardian is now hiding in the US and Foster recruits him as a SHIELD agent. It then cuts to the Battle of New York as the Avengers line up, only now Red Guardian joins the group as well. Not really sure why Iron Man is here, considering that so much of his past has now changed because of the events of this episode, but maybe there's some other way that he could have become Iron Man. It's not implausible, but I do think it's a bit weird that he's here. Overall, this episode is a mess. I have no idea what Red Guardian's motivations are, so all I've got to work with is his annoying, grating personality. You know how Bucky and his Winter Soldier persona act completely differently and have completely different mannerisms? Well, here the Winter Soldier just isn't the Winter Soldier. He's just a slightly eviler version of Bucky. having Bucky's charm and sarcastic mannerisms while working for Hydra. The plot is just kind of happening. As I mentioned, it's kicked off by Red Guardian's motivations, but I have no idea what he's actually trying to accomplish, so everything just kind of snowballs into chaotic confusion. The fight and chase scenes really aren't that special, and besides Foster, the duo don't really fight anyone else to show off any interesting choreography or styles, with the episode cutting away right before an actual big battle that would have been interesting. This episode is supposed to be very comedic, but again, Red Guardian is just a loud, obnoxious asshole, so everything he says and does is just annoying instead of comedic. And Winter Soldier mostly just snarks, and that's about it. Episode 4 gives us the answer to the long-standing question of, you know that party episode in season 1? What if we continued that and focused on Howard the Duck and Darcy dating?
God, forgive me.
Remember how in my video on season 2 I said I'm fine with them going back to other universes they've already been to as long as there's a lot of good storytelling potential? This isn't one of those episodes. So for some reason Darcy decides to romance and marry a fucking bipedal duck, and then she gives birth to an egg, because the human body is definitely designed to shit out one of these things. Like seriously, I don't know what the fuck's going on here. How are they going to have offspring when he's a fucking duck? After putting the egg to sleep, unfortunately not in the way that would have alleviated it from this nightmare of existence, the two are invited to join the Grand Master's new cruise line to explore the stars, where it becomes apparent that someone wishes to steal the egg from them. During their introduction to the Grand Master, despite some hesitation, the two agree to send it to be looked after by the child-caring workers while they spend time together. Because dumping your baby off to a bunch of strangers you barely know in an unfamiliar place is definitely a normal, not at all plot-contrived thing to do. The group arrive at dinner where it's revealed that the Grand Master has invited everyone to eat the egg, as it is a unique being that hasn't been seen before. What a fucking contrived situation. If you wanted to eat the egg, fine, fair enough. But why would you invite the parents that obviously don't care about joining you? As the egg is about to be cooked, Yondu shows up and steals the egg for himself. The two find a ship to chase after the Ravagers, but they go through a jump point before the pair can catch up. They phone in S.H.I.E.L.D. and Fury explains that to them their child was born at the same time that the cosmic convergence from Thor the Dark World happened, which to many aliens in the galaxy, they believe that this makes this egg an extremely powerful being. Oh, I can't. I fucking can't. It's an egg made from a human and a duck that was conceived 9 months before the convergence events that were supposed to happen, so I don't know how this thing could have some special cosmic powers. It's just such a fucking stupid plot. Does every baby that's born at this time get powers? Why is this specific one getting powers? Because it's a hybrid? I don't know. I don't know. It's fucking stupid. This is such a dumb episode. The two listen in on a conversation Fury is having with Coulson and discover that the Ravagers might be taking the egg to the Collector on Nowhere. How S.H.I.E.L.D. would know information from the opposite side of the galaxy that just happened is obviously bullshit, but whatever. Yondu arrives at the Collector base but finds that it's been taken over by Caecilius, who kills him and takes the egg for himself. Again, how Caecilius got to the opposite side of the galaxy when sling rings only take you to places you can picture in your head is, once again, bullshit, but let's move on. Darcy and Howard arrive to see that Caecilius and his disciples are about to conduct a ritual, and then both of them magically summon cloaks from nowhere so they can conveniently blend in. During the ceremony, the two are constantly bickering and moving around, and despite being surrounded on all sides by Dormammu cultists, absolutely no one sees them or tries to stop them from being obvious imposters. Caecilius summons Dormammu and offers the egg as a vessel to be born into this universe. S.H.I.E.L.D., fucking S.H.I.E.L.D., somehow arrive and stop the ritual, and then just stand around talking to Howard and Darcy and allowing Caecilius to try and stop them. Somehow a skilled and powerful sorcerer empowered by the Dark Dimension struggles to take on Nick Fury, a guy with a gun, and so Howard and Darcy manage to get away as the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents and cultists fight each other. The two decide to head to Jotunheim, where Howard apparently knows Loki, and as they meet, Fury arrives to try and get the egg back. Loki's dad shows up and tries to take the egg for himself, only for Zeus, Caecilius, the Grandmaster, Thanos' cabal and even the Dark Elves to show up and everyone starts to fight each other. The two manage to escape for a little bit and we then have to endure 30 seconds of these two singing "I was made for loving you" to a fucking egg as nothing else happens. The egg then shoots up into the sky and it zaps out all the attackers. Well, all of the attackers except Fury and the SHIELD agents, because apparently this egg has enough mental capabilities to understand the morality of the people attacking it, and so conveniently chooses to not kill the only good guys that are hunting down the egg.
Oh, that's convenient.
The egg then hatches and a baby is born. And Fury just randomly decides, after seeing the power of this kid, that he isn't interested in the child anymore, despite the fact that the whole reason he wanted it in the first place was because of how powerful it was. You know, it's almost like this script is just so fucking awful. The two decide to go home with their kid, who they name Birdie, and the episode ends. Don't know how they got home, but that's probably one of the last problems this script has. This episode is fucking dog shit on pretty much every conceivable level. The voice performances are good, and I did like how Darcy was trying to come to grips with how the Galactic Society works, but that was about it. Just like with the episode, this episode is a sequel to, a lot of the characters have just had their personality swapped out and behave nothing like their mainstream counterparts. The action scenes are really underwhelming and usually don't even focus on the action themselves. Most of the comedy just isn't funny, so if you binge watch these episodes, that means you've just sat through 3 comedy episodes that were absolutely dog shit. The dialogue ranges from perfectly satisfactory to the cringiest stuff a wannabe Joss Whedon would have written. The premise is completely fucking stupid and the world building is just in tatters. Like seriously, how the fuck are SHIELD just jumping around the universe and finding out events that happen trillions of light years away instantly? Also, just like with the first episode, there's a lot of characters that show up here that are actually voiced by the celebrity voice actor, only for the character to basically say fuck all and do nothing. If you weren't going to have Thanos do anything in this episode, did you really need to waste a huge chunk of your budget hiring Josh Brolin to come in and say about 10 words of dialogue? Not 10 lines, 10 words, and then he fucks off and nothing happens. Complete waste of time. Swiftly moving on, we have episode 5, which shows us Riri Williams sneaking through the streets to avoid an army of Iron Man-like robots to meet up with her contact, and although she gets what she came for, she is betrayed and has to fight her way out of the building. During her fight, it's shown that some of the robots aren't real and are in fact illusions. Breaching through the top of the building, she is quickly attacked by a white vision-looking entity, which just when it's about to kill her lets her go because a bunch of people start firing a machine gun at it that has no real effect. So this thing just drops her. Why? This doesn't injure it and it's in no rush to protect itself, so clearly it doesn't feel the pain, or at least not enough to be killed, which makes this choice feel almost contrived.
You're a stupid dumbass.
Also, why would you be firing what looks like an anti-aircraft cannon at someone to save them? You get brushed by one of these things, you'd explode into chunks, and for some reason they think the best way to save Riri is by shooting these things in her direction. Riri meets Admiral Nan, Wong, Okoye and Valkyrie, who are part of some sort of resistant movement, with the group speeding away and we're shown that the Earth is just fucked. Personally, I think it looks a bit too fucked to still support life, but maybe there's some sort of magical or scientific explanation for why several rocks floating in space still has an atmosphere. It turns out that in this universe, the Celestial was brought to life a few years before the Eternals came together to stop it, and as such it emerged from the Earth's core and shattered the planet. And I feel like that isn't the change that would lead to this universe happening. I know they say it emerged because the Eternals weren't united to stop it, but why was it hatched so early in this universe? Were the birth rates too high? Did Thanos not snap away half the universe when he did? What is the actual change for this universe? Because it doesn't really tell us. After the Earth shattered, Quentin Beck took over what was left of Stark Industries and managed to make his Iron Man robot serve him, taking over what was left of the world and his only obstacle being the Rebel Alliance that banded against him, with him sending his Vision robot to track down and kill the group that escaped. It turns out that Riri has been trying to make a weapon that would destroy Vision, a task that is quite difficult because he's made of vibranium. And I know this because the show info dumps all her character goals on the board to make sure the audience is up to date and they don't have to waste time, you know, just building up to it naturally. They arrive back at the headquarters and show Riri their lab, which they hope has enough in it to create the the Vision destroying weapon, and as she begins, Vision arrives at the headquarters, with the group and rebel soldiers trying to fight and distract it for as long as they can. We then get a decent sequence of events, showing Vision absolutely slaughtering the guards before engaging the magically empowered group in hand-to-hand combat. Defeating the group, it tries to attack Riri, not by using the extremely powerful laser on its head, but by slowly flying towards her, allowing her to create the weapon at the last second and kill it, much to Beck's anger. The group blow up the ship and leave, with Riri believing that if they disrupt his network, it will shut down the illusions and control of the Iron Legion, with the group pointing out that they'd have to make it to his base behind the asteroid belt and fight through all of his illusions. Riri decides that the best way to do this is to take the Vision body and turn herself into a being that has the same powers as the robot, while retaining her human consciousness. Infusing herself and Vision's body together, Riri begins guiding them through Beck's defences, showing them what is real defences and the illusionary ones so she can navigate through them. But then Riri's connection to the network begins to falter and the group come under attack, unable to tell the difference between the illusions anymore. The group hold off Beck's forces so Nan and Riri can make it to the control hub. The two make their way to the hub, and as she tries to hack into the central hub, it is revealed that the entire thing is an illusion, including Nan, and I mean, yeah, no shit. You just saw this one ordinary human use one kick to destroy two robots and she didn't shatter her fucking leg in the process. Why would you think this Nan is real? Beck appears and reveals that he is the network, having infused his body with nanites, and that he needs to be dead before this system will go down. He then also reveals that he is going to transfer his nanites into her body, allowing him to take control and live on to watch over his empire. As he attempts to interface with her, she uses this connection to attack his nanites, before punching through the prison window and escaping. As she attempts to fight him, he reveals that she never left the field, showing that all of the Becks that she just fought were actually the team, and that she just slaughtered them all. And she then begins to break down, and so lets Beck begin to take over her body. The Watcher, who has apparently been to other universes where these same events have happened, decides this time he isn't going to watch this happen and tells Riri to fight. Spurred on by his words, she then retakes control of her body and phases through Beck, taking his nanites with her. Beck dies and Riri manages to shut down the network, creating a massive Avengers symbol in the sky to bring hope back to the people once more. As the planet is freed, it's shown that another group of Watchers have been watching the Watcher, and are furious that he has broken his oath of non-interference again, showing that they are going to be monitoring him more closely. 5 episodes in and we have, dare I say it, a decent episode. There's a few things that I think could be improved, like telling us exactly what the change was that allowed the Celestial to be born, how the Earth can even function in its current state, and some parts of the action scenes. But for the most part, I did think it was a solid episode. The voice acting was good, the characterization was consistent, the action scenes for the most part were good, the use of Beck's illusions and the plot twists made sense, and it helps to show why the Watcher might have been hesitant to help with the previous stories. Hopefully they'll keep up this momentum. Episode 6 begins in the middle of a ruined church in the Wild West during the 19th century, with a group of bandits led by John Walker are trying to summon Shang-Chi. They summon Shang-Chi, who is accompanied by Kate Bishop, and Walker states that he intends to kill the two of them. Shang-Chi throws his hat into the air, and for some reason literally everyone in John's gang decides to look up at it, allowing Shang to get in close and begin to beat them up, while Kate chooses to shoot the others. And while I enjoy the music and the choreography for it is good at some points, this fight has some issues. Why are the people with guns running up to the guy beating them up instead of just shooting him at a distance? Why does Kate decide to shoot the guns out of some of their hands, implying she's not trying to kill them, but then the others she'll just straight up kill them, so what was the point of disarming some but not the others? In one of the shots we see guns flying towards Kate, but then after she grabs one, the others just fade out of existence. The two question Walker and someone called the Hood, who has been kidnapping immigrant construction workers across the US, with Walker revealing they're heading towards a place called Point Pegasus. And it's revealed that Shang is trying to find his sister, who escaped their father and immigrated to the US, going missing due to the actions of the Hood. And I'm sorry, but what the fuck even is the change anymore? Did Shang's father manage to reach the hidden village sooner in this timeline? Hence why Shang and his sister were born in the 19th century? If so, why would Kate Bishop and John Walker be here? It's not just them either, there's a bunch of other characters that are here over 100 years before the main timeline. Is this just a straight up alternate universe? Have the writers just abandoned the whole point of this series? It certainly fucking looks that way. The two reach Pegasus only to find it in ruins, with only a young boy, Jun Fan, left there. Jun insisted that his camp was taken aboard a train, although the direction he points in has no railway lines for the train to run on. They follow the tracks and they manage to come across the ghost train, which seems to be using some sort of anti-gravity technology. They come across a wide range of weapons being stored, as well as all of the missing workers, who appear to be in some sort of trance and don't respond to the trio. As they move up the train, they are greeted by Sonny Birch and a load of the Hood's goons, and although Jun manages to run away, the other two are taken hostage. Jun is caught by the goons, but the Watcher decides to interfere, knocking the goons off the train and allowing Jun to get away. For some reason, I don't know why, if the Watcher is okay with interfering now, he'll stop to help one child from dying, but he didn't help with, for instance, the first episode, where monsters decimated the planet and killed millions of people. The train passes through a tunnel and suddenly appears in a snowy area, and as Shang demands to know what happened to his sister, he and the Hood get into a fight. And it's pretty good. There's a lot of good choreography and camera techniques. Yeah, you really get the sense that this is a martial arts fight scene. All of a sudden, the Hood disappears, becoming invisible, while Sonny takes out his watch, which plays a tune that starts to put Kate into some sort of trance that the other workers are in. As she goes into the trance, Sonny reveals that he was the one who killed her parents, taking her parents' fortune to fund their operations. Shang manages to lower the Hood's hood, where it's revealed to be his sister Xiaoling. She reveals that she was trying to form an army to take over the country, and make sure that the US becomes the free country that the immigrants believed it was, forcefully conscripting them into the fight. Right before she kills Shang, Jun rings the train bell, distracting Xiaoling and freeing those that are put under the trance Sonny put them under. Kate manages to break free and begins gunning down the goons on the train, and although it does look cool, it's ruined by the fact that she's clearly firing a shitload of bullets that her revolver cannot hold. Kate knocks Sonny out and Shang manages to get himself back up, refusing to fight his sister and telling her to kill him if she truly believes she's right. Despite his talk, she still continues to try and kill him, forcing Kate to shoot her and she dies in his arms. The duo make sure that the immigrants are settled down in their new home before riding off to help others that need assistance. As the Watcher looks unsatisfied, his superiors appear and reveal that they will be taking action against him for his constant interference, attacking him and causing some of the observatory to spill into the multiverse. Overall, I enjoyed episode 6. I'm a bit biased because I love Wild West settings, but yeah, the action was good for the most part, the voice acting was good, the story made sense, I really loved the music, and there were some nice visual elements. Unfortunately, despite being my favourite episode of this season, this is technically the worst episode of What If so far, purely for the fact that this doesn't seem to be a what if story. Not only does the Watcher not even bother to tell us what the change is, if there is one, but this doesn't justify pretty much any of the other changes that occurred in this episode. We saw in season 2 a scenario that completely changed the entire universe so that none of the events of the main timeline happened. But that's still a change that is understandable. The Tesseract landing in a different place on Earth, and as such different events would happen around it. This is just a straight up alternate universe that couldn't be made by any changes to the other MCU entries, and as such it fails as a what if story completely. And if you thought that wasn't bad enough, we then move on to episode 7. We open on a world being attacked by some sort of interdimensional beast, which is killing off the members of the Nova Corps trying to stop it. This universe's Nova Prime, which is Nebula, alongside her bodyguards Groot and Korg, attempt to figure out a plan to evacuate the planet, only for a version of Kang's multiversal ship to appear. Inside the ship is Captain Carter.
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
Look, I really like Hayley Atwell. I think she's a good actress and she's done some good voice work for this series. But I'm so tired of seeing Captain Carter in these episodes. Actually, you know what? Scratch that. I'm so fucking sick of seeing this one specific version of Captain Carter. She has taken up so many episodes in this series when there's so many other characters and changed storylines that could have been focused on instead. I had been weirdly optimistic throughout this season that she wouldn't be back, but clearly I was wrong. So this Captain Carter leads her team, consisting of a grown-up Birdie, Kahori, and a Mione empowered Storm. Just to recap, of this multiversal team that goes around saving universes, you have Kahori, a being empowered by an Infinity Stone, Birdie, a being that for some reason is extremely powerful and was capable of wiping out armies before she was technically even born, Storm, who on top of her mutant powers now has the strength, reflexes and magic of Thor thanks to the help of Mjolnir, and Captain Carter, a slightly stronger human with a shield. One of these is not like the other, almost like she's been shoehorned in for absolutely no reason. The team then begins to fight the monster, and of course it's Captain Carter who manages to kill it, because who the fuck else is gonna do it? The cosmic beings on her team? Also, I know that the Super Soldier Serum has been a bit inconsistent with its effects, but the amount of fall damage Carter just brushes off is staggering. She basically falls from the sky and lands on her feet and she's just completely fine. As they're talking to Nebula, a bunch of shards we saw at the end of the last episode somehow managed to crash land right next to them. As in, throughout all of the multiverse, they just so happen to land right next to the people who know about the Watcher and where these shards belong to. We then cut to the Watcher being interrogated by his bosses for his decision to go into the multiverse and interfere with things, and informs him that while they will not go out of their way to eliminate Carter's team at the moment, they will if she tries to interfere with them in the Order of the Watchers. On board their ship, the team analyse the shards and come to the conclusion that the Watcher is in trouble and needs their help. Birdie decides that in order to reach the 5th dimension, she can integrate the shard into Kang's multiversal ship in order to reach the Watcher's observational plane. When they try to test this out, the ship blows up before it can reach the 5th dimension, and on the second test, where Storm tries to infuse their second shard with the cosmic magic from the gods of Asgard, she also nearly succeeds, but fails at the last minute. Trying to come up with another solution, Kahori decides that maybe they should try and recruit the help of a variant of Infinity Ultron, as he was able to infiltrate the Watcher's observational plane in his episode. They come up with an idea to get Birdie to reprogram Infinity Ultron and get him to help with the last shard, and if their plan fails, they will prune his universe using the TVA prune charges until they get the plan right. Storm finds Carter unable to sleep, and she talks about how when they previously faced Infinity Ultron, she fought alongside the multiverse's greatest warriors and they still nearly lost, and is worried about her current team. Carter, you fought alongside T'Challa Star-Lord, a dude with a jetpack, Killmonger, another super soldier like yourself, a weak version of Thor, a slightly more ruthless Gamora, and Black Widow, who is a regular human. None of these are impressive, and they only managed to do anything useful because Doctor Strange was carrying the whole team the entire game. You call these people the multiverse's greatest heroes when you're currently teamed up with 3 cosmic beings. If your old team managed to fight Infinity Ultron, something tells me you'll be fine with 3 demigods on your side, but apparently she thinks that this new team is weaker. We then get a recap of what Infinity Ultron did, going around the universe killing every sentient being in the galaxy. This version of Infinity Ultron, without the Watcher to pique his interest in the possibility of the multiverse, merely stopped doing anything after completing his task, spending eons in complete silence, and is completely taken by surprise when the portal opens behind him and Carter steps out. The rest of the crew wakes up and discovers that Carter went to confront Ultron without them, jumping to the Ultron universe only to find Carter's broken shield. Ultron appears behind them and informs them that she's gone, with the group believing he's telling them he killed her, until the team attack him. He uses the Infinity Stones to freeze them, but then chooses to let them go, explaining that Carter was actually taken by the Watchers. He also explained that he killed all life because he believed that peace could only be achieved when there's no life to create conflict. But the world he created was not peaceful, just empty, understanding that peace and conflict are natural and that he must protect life and atone. Now, don't get me wrong, I really like the sentiment he has here. I think it's a really good bit of character progression, it makes sense. But I do have one big question. He has the stones, and unlike people like Thanos, he can use these stones' energy without risking damaging himself, essentially having unlimited power in his universe. So why not just snap all life back into existence? Why can he not just remake all the worlds and rebirth all life? It's a pretty major plot point that just seems to be brushed over for a bit of character development. Ultron reveals that he managed to save the shard Carter brought with her. Not sure how, considering presumably she would have kept the shard on her person and she was taken by the Watcher, but whatever. He absorbs the shard and uses its power to power their ship, allowing them to travel to the 5th dimension and begin their battle against the Watchers. Once again, the series has done what it's always done and shoehorned in some big multiversal crossover event. An event that has no real weight because the season 1 finale already raised the stakes to the end of the multiverse. so you can't really top that. This episode has a lot of nice animation to it, the voice acting is good, and I really do like the idea of a remorseful Infinity Ultron. But overall the plot is uninteresting, the character development ignores a pretty obvious idea that Ultron chooses to just not do for some reason, and it's just really disappointing seeing them once again focus on a small group of characters and settings when the show is supposed to be about the infinite ideas of the multiverse. The 8th and final episode starts when we see the Watcher first become a Watcher, and while he is hesitant and uncertain, he agrees to his oath, gaining the ability to watch over the multiverse. It then cuts to his trial in the present day, where while the Watcher states he believes the multiverse must be actively cared for, much like a gardener looks after their garden to make sure it's the best version of itself, the others believe that he is just interfering with the natural order of things, and therefore wrong to the natural flow of life and death. There's also a very unfunny joke when the bosses are listing the amount of times the Watcher has interfered and saved people's lives, and during their list they mention Madison from She-Hulk, and instead of just saying her name like a normal person, they specifically list that she has 2 N's and 1 Y, just to make sure everyone at home gets the unfunny reference to the shit character in a shit TV show. They then bring in Carter into the trial, stating that she is the worst thing that he created that could have interfered with their order. I mean, 2 seasons ago he accidentally created Infinity Ultron that smashed into their observational plane, which means he could have wiped out the entire multiverse and then killed them. But sure, the mortal, mildly above average human with a shield is the worst thing the Watcher has ever allowed to escape their universe. The bosses state that because so much has gone wrong thanks to the Watcher's desire to interfere, they will kill Carter and remove any other mistakes he has made, chastising him for making them break their oaths to fix his mistakes. Infinity Ultron then arrives to attack the bosses and help the 2 escape, covering for them while they run. Birdie comes to the conclusion that if they can't return to the multiverse because someone will be watching them, then they could hide in between the multiverse while they make plans. And this makes sense somehow. I get that this show deals with different planes of existence, but I really don't see how this is a theoretical thing that exists either. Either they're in the multiverse or they're not, in which case they're in the 5th dimension. It's just more mumble jumble to justify the plot. The group comes to the conclusion that they need to reach the universe created by Doctor Strange in the last season, as he is essentially in control of that entire universe and therefore might be able to remove the power of the Watchers. I don't know how any of this works. They said pretty explicitly in the last season that he was destroyed making the universe, and they talked about him like he was dead. So I don't know why all of a sudden they know he's technically still alive and capable of fighting 5th dimensional beings. You know, things that don't abide by the rules of the universe, multiverse, whatever the fuck. We all know this is bollocks, so let's just see if it leads to an interesting fight scene and I can stop watching this show. Unfortunately, before they even get there, the bosses kill Ultron and then destroy their ship. Why they didn't destroy everyone on the ship is a bit of a mystery. Almost like they're aware there's still 15 minutes of the show left, so they don't deliberately do it. And for some reason Carter can breathe in space, because that's where their ship is when it's destroyed and she doesn't die from lack of oxygen. So yeah, she's slowly become Marvel's biggest Mary Sue that can do anything and always saves the day. Hell, you know what? She might be Disney's biggest Mary Sue. I'm pretty sure she's done more than Ray has at this point. The group try fighting, but they're quickly overwhelmed. And so to try and save their lives, the Watcher asks the team to do the Watcher's Oath, transforming them into Watchers. I'm fucking sorry, what? Literally anyone in the multiverse can just say I accept and become a godlike 5th dimensional being at any time? Because that's all they do. They don't trick the bosses into giving them power. Uatu doesn't give them any power. They just say I accept and become gods. Honestly, I can't believe how bad this writing is. We very clearly saw that despite taking the oath, the Watcher still had to be given his power at the start of the episode. And now they just make it so that anyone can become a god at any time by just saying 2 words. It's just so fucking terrible. The Watcher states that he will no longer be no one, reclaiming his name of Uatu. And so the group fight each other, and obviously the 3 individuals who have had their powers the longest and understand their full capabilities start getting smashed by the recently empowered fuckwits, who also for some reason seem to be fighting the Watchers one-on-one. So at one point we see Storm get knocked out of the fight and it's only afterwards that Birdie cuts in, and we see Carter fighting one of them and it takes Kahori ages to arrive and help, despite the fact that she isn't doing anything of significance whatsoever. so I don't know what the fuck she was doing. And I don't think it was intentional, but you have the group fighting these watchers using all these powers and magic and cosmic fuckery, and then we just cut to Uatu's fight, and they're just punching each other like they're fighting in a pub car park. It's really funny and it's really just great. It's supposed to be Uatu's big character moment, but it just looks like two dudes who are fighting each other after having too much Stella. The group managed to get the watchers pinned down, and despite them saying several times they will never yield and will continue to fight until they die, Uatu tells the group to stop attacking. And surprise surprise, his heart-to-heart plea isn't heard by them, almost like they demonstrated they'd rather die than join you. Almost like Uatu has made an idiot just to keep the plot going. The Watchers then combine together to unleash a blast that will, in their words, not only kill them, but erase every version of them from every universe. Alright, so a few things here. Why? Why not just focus all of this power on killing them? Surely if they did that, instead of wasting time spending energy to erase every version in an infinite multiverse, they would probably win instantly. Secondly, for people who say they don't want to interfere with the multiverse, they seem extremely adamant about fucking over all these other universes for no reason. Thirdly, it's not just people caught up in this blast that would be affected by the multiversal changes. There's also items here like Mjolnir and the Shield. So doesn't that mean that every universe that has a Thor and a Captain America will also be affected by this? Basically, just so you realise that these are bad guys and they don't have a point, they do that thing where they make them over the top evil instead of just making logical sense. As everyone is being disintegrated into literally nothingness, Carter just decides, nah, and fully reforms herself and attacks the Watchers. I mean, you were already a Mary Sue before, but now through willpower alone you can just bring yourself back into existence. Like, come the fuck on. After attacking the Watchers, everyone gets sucked into the explosion, where it lands them in Stranger's universe, leaving the Watchers powerless. Uatu reveals that he will not kill them, but will instead teach them why he does the things he does, and hopefully in time they will understand why he chooses to interfere in the multiverse. Also, Carter is just dead now apparently, and after a small eulogy, the episode ends. So that was just dog shit. The fights were cool, but everything else about it was terrible. The only good thing it did was kill off this version of Captain Carter, so I never have to see her again. But even then, it's implied that some part of her might still be alive, so I can't even give it props for that. Season 3 of What If took everything I hated about the previous season and decided to ramp it up to the point of absurdity. For the most part, it didn't care about making interesting, well-developed characters. It didn't focus on trying to give plots with depth in them. It didn't give us scenes that actually meant anything. Hell, for most of the episode, it didn't even tell us or show us what the change was. You know, the whole point of the show. It just focused on comedy, making every episode seem insane and over the top, and looking at characters and events only the most devoted of slop eaters would give a shit about. I genuinely cannot believe that not only is a show called What If, which talks about all the different possibilities in the multiverse, ending after 3 seasons, but of those 3 seasons, about a third of the episodes were devoted to Captain Carter and having some sort of interconnected storyline. There's literally thousands of episodes that could have been made on this premise, and I mean thousands of good episodes. Let's just look at the Infinity Saga for instance, which is phases 1, 2 and 3. What if Captain America didn't get frozen? Or what if he got revived at a different point in the timeline? What would happen to Whiplash if his father wasn't fucked over by Stark Industries? What would the world be like if the nuke and the Avengers went off in New York City? What if Malekith managed to win during Thor the Dark World? What would the world be like if Ultron didn't turn evil? What would happen if Cap didn't stop Hydra from launching the helicarriers? What would have happened if they didn't fight in Civil War and they just joined together? What if the Avengers won against Thanos the first time? What if the other half got snapped away instead? What if the movie Captain Marvel wasn't a boring, unfunny piece of shit? So many different scenarios to come up with just from those phases. Never mind anything that came out during phases 4 and 5. On top of this, you also have all of the properties that have been folded into the MCU retroactively. For instance, what if Magneto joined Charles instead of siding against him? What if Charles joined Magneto and joined his Brotherhood of Mutants? What if Apocalypse succeeded in taking over the world? What would have happened if Frank Castle died instead of his wife? What would have happened if the Defenders didn't defeat the Hand and New York got destroyed? But no, it seems that after the first season, anyone dedicated to great storytelling left the show, and so in the end we're left obsessed with whatever this thing is. And just to piss in my cereal, during the ending monologue of this season, they actually showed us a bunch of variant characters that I genuinely would have been more interested in, such as Ghost Rider, a Thanos Wolverine hybrid, you have Vision dressed as a ninja, a Hulk that has Doctor Strange's powers, a Skrull Captain America, a Star-Lord with some sort of magic weapon. So many ideas that I look at and think, wow, I wonder what their stories were. But instead we get more of the Captain Carter show. And unfortunately that's how this show will be remembered. A show with infinite possibilities and characters that chose to focus on one shit character and one shit storyline. Thanks for watching, lads and lasses. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking, subscribing and checking out some of my other videos. Sharing always helps, and if you're feeling really generous, please consider my Patreon or YouTube membership. I also have a Twitter and occasionally I do live streams. But most of all, I just hope you had a great day and hopefully I will see you in the next video.